Hello, my name is Tiffany Jones, and I am the reading interventionist and literacy specialist for the kindergarten through third grade students at our school. And some of you are familiar with my face. You've worked with me before. But if not, I will be inviting your student to my small group class, and I wanted to give you some information and a little bit of training that I always wished I would have done in the past, just so you have an idea of what's going on in my classes and why it's so important that we remediate some skills for your second or third grade student. So let's take a look at why it is so important and vital that we give them some extra support. Because now that we're past first grade, the data is not very kind to your students, but if we jump in and do something, I think that there's a lot of hope to get them back onto grade level. But it is going to take your cooperation with me and us working together to really meet the needs of your student in order to get them up to grade level. This chart just shows the state's been tracking, they've been tracking by cohorts, so the same group of students from kindergarten to first to second to third for the past 3 years. And reading in general in the state, this is telling kind of a sad story because we were seeing that more and more kids were becoming proficient as they went through the grades. Still, by the end of third grade, only 78% of this 2015 cohort was considered proficient in their DIBELS scores by the end of the year. But last year's cohort, so they were tested at the end of the 2016-17 school year, had completely flatlined since first grade. So 61% came into kindergarten, or rather exited kindergarten, being proficient on the DIBELS test. And then we made this big jump, not big enough, but big. A lot happens in that first grade year, but then these students just, once they hit first grade, they did not gain proficiency. So that close to 30% of kids in last year's cohort that wasn't proficient in first grade then went on not to be proficient in second and not in third. And so we're going to have to work together on this so that your second and third graders don't have this happen to them. We want them to become part of that percentage that is then proficient. So research has found that the most effective way to intervene for these students is to give them really targeted instruction. So we need to identify exactly what their needs are, and then we need to teach it in an explicit way by really laying it out for them and teaching exactly what the skill is, why it's important, and we need to have a system for doing that. So we can't just pick a random skill here or there and hope that they're going to get it. We need to come in with a plan of attack and go about it in a really measured way. There are 2 ways that we're going to do that this year. And one, I really don't have a lot of control over. You as the learning coach have the control over iReady at home. Your student has taken a diagnostic test, and hopefully they did that all by themselves, so it shows a true measure of their abilities. If not, we can go in and adjust and make sure that the lessons are matched up to what they need. So that diagnostic narrowed in onto some of the skills that they were deficient in or some of the skills that they were really great at, and it's prioritized and said, okay, this student needs to work on high frequency words and phonics. So when your student logs in, it has that exact spot saved. They go from that lesson and they have that individualized instruction there and ready for them in iReady. Now, on Mondays, I'm going to be really digging in and tracking how they're doing in iReady, looking at their scores. I have the ability to look and see, okay, on this lesson where they learned the pattern AIAY, they didn't pass that. We need to go back in this week and talk about it. So then on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, they will be invited to my small group reading class, and it will look something like this Tier 3 reading class. The time will be in the afternoon, and it will just be a half-an-hour class. I will try to keep the group sizes as small as I possibly can so that I have time to read with your student and to give them some individualized attention. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, they'll come to class. We'll work on skills together in class. They're still logging into iReady each day to do their lessons in there. And if you're finding that it's too much for them to try to get into iReady, to do their small group reading stuff, and then they just are burning out on their language arts courses in the online school, let's adjust that. Just communicate with me. I'm happy to adjust and make sure, because this is more important than them doing the second or third grade literature lesson for the day. We need to get them to where they could read that lesson on their own. This is SOS. So please communicate with me and let me know if it's feeling really overwhelming for you and them. Then on Fridays, we will do progress monitoring. So I will come up with a schedule of when your student needs to come. This piece is also really important. iReady is great, but I get a lot of information from actually listening to them read. And so I will be progress monitoring on Fridays to measure, okay, how's it going? Is all of the stuff that we're doing making a difference in their reading? Because that's ultimately is what we want. So, I'm going to go quickly through kind of the progression of reading skills, and this doesn't apply as much to second and third graders, but sometimes it can. So just be aware that students first need to be able to hear rhymes and isolated sounds in words. They need to be able to blend sounds together, like if they heard k, at, they would need to be able to recognize that that's the word cat. And they also need to be able to segment sounds in words, so go the opposite direction and say k, at when given the word cat. Blending is a reading skill, segmenting is a writing skill. So both of those oral skills are really, really important to their ability to read and to write. You can look through this, but if you have suspicions that your student is not proficient in these skills, take 5-10 minutes a day and work on some of these things with them. The next thing we start to do with students in our systematic instruction is to make sure that they can recognize and say letter sounds automatically. Now I know by second and third grade most of the students have mastered this, but maybe your student hasn't yet. Maybe they don't have their letter sounds down to the point where it's automatic. They don't have to think about the sound that the letters make. If you know that they do, please spend time practicing with them until you can do flashcards, or there's lots of stuff online. However you need to do it to get them to the point where they can look at this letter and know it says b, f, d, g, a, with no pause, no hesitation. They have it automatically down. So when I teach reading, I do little letter sets. We start with 5 letters at a time. Then we begin to blend them together as soon as we can. We want to get those vowel sounds in there, because saying a consonant like B in isolation, ba, we often add an a sound at the end, which actually, if we spelled it, would look like this. And so we want to get that connected to the vowel sound, ba, as soon as we can. Or if it was an E, ba, or ba, or ba, or bi. Okay, so we're going to start blending those sounds together right away. We want to teach students to blend sounds and words smoothly instead of chopping them up into their individual sounds. Some students are never able to get past that when we teach them that, to go b, a, g, bag. Then you'll notice, and maybe this is true to your student, that they spend their whole time reading going f, ad, fad, the, g, ag, gag, and they never are able to get to the meaning in the passage because they're spending so much time and energy trying to say each individual sound. So the sooner we can get them blending sounds, the better. So we're going to encourage them, instead of chopping things up, to start bag. That's much smoother. We can hear how the sounds are connected. I'm not adding an extra U sound between b-ag, bag. We're just going right into the vowel sound. So most of your students probably are okay with that, but you may need to work on undoing some of the teaching that they've had to teach them this skill so that we can move on to whole word reading. That's our goal. And then once they've mastered blending those simple short vowel sound words, the 3-letter cat looking words, we're going to slowly build the complexity. And I am going to teach them this year in the small group reading classes, and some of you have already seen this in my classes last year. I caught on to this system of marking the words, and I really love it, and I think it's going to make a difference. I also have my students use all 4 processing systems in their brain when we are in class. So they're going to hear words, they're going to say them, because your auditory processing system is totally different from the part of your brain that says things. So we want to get these connected together. They'll hear it, they'll say it, they're going to write. Every single day in my class, they're going to write sounds, and then they're going to read the words and sounds that they've written so that we can connect up all 4 of those processing systems in their brain. We'll start with blends, and then we'll move on to the 5 phonetic skills that you need to know. There's 5 rules that most words follow pretty closely, with lots of exceptions because English is such a hodgepodge of every language. And then as soon as they have those patterns down, we can start working on decoding bigger words, because sometimes your students feel so overwhelmed when they see a word like complexity. They just see how many letters are in it and then they want to shut down right away. But I'm going to teach them how to break it apart, to take it a piece at a time, and to use those 5 rules, the phonetic rules, to apply it and be able to read pretty much any word. Now, there's always words in English that don't follow the rules, but if we can at least get them chunking words up and looking for parts that they know, then they can access the background knowledge in their brains and their oral vocabulary to help fill in the difference. So I just threw out a lot of terminology, and if you have more questions or are interested more in the method, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to explain that to you and to help support you in helping your student at home. So one last note, please take time every day, even for 2nd and 3rd grader, to read to your child. It helps them foster positive feelings about literature. It strengthens your relationship with them. There's lots of research about this. And it also boosts their vocabulary. We want that to happen because lots of times with struggling readers, their vocabularies are really not as great. They don't run into as many words if they're not reading. So we want to do all that we can to boost their vocabulary, to make sure that they're hearing those words, so that when they do encounter them as they read, they have something to pull from. But when they are practicing reading, please don't read for them. So you need to ask yourself about the task and why they're doing it. If you are trying to get them through their literature assignment and it's a lot of reading and the whole point of it is for them to understand about the characters in the story, please, by all means, help them, read to them, help them get through that passage. But when they are working on the task of learning to read, they have to do the processing for themselves. So please do not jump in and read the word for them. Give them the sound they need. Don't tell them what letter to spell with. If they make a mistake, don't go, eh. Okay? Don't do that while they're practicing, because they need the chance to process through. They need the chance to recognize their own mistake. That's where the learning happens. So please, 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 I beg you, you're more than welcome to come, and actually I love it when the learning coaches come and help them to stay focused in my classes, but I don't expect them to know everything, and I think we're giving them a crutch if we jump in to help them to read while they're learning to read. So please, when they come to my class, don't help them. If there's something that I can see they really don't understand, I'll jump in and I will help them, but I want to give them that chance to practice and to learn to get better. So this has been lengthy. I hope it's been informative and helpful. Please contact me if you need help or if you have any questions. My email is tijones@utahvirtual.org, and here is my phone number.